Hello and welcome to Biker Bushcraft. Today our adventure is going to begin at the end of the trip. You've seen me go to these remote campsites, down dirt roads, camp, have a nice night, cook some good meals, enjoy the woods, and then head out. And that's really nothing different than other bushcrafters are doing. That's what bushcraft is. What is different is I'm getting there by motorcycle. I'm taking my motorcycle down dirt roads, sometimes off-road, down trails, and finding remote locations, often many miles from any kind of services, any kind of civilization. And that's kind of the point. When you hike in, barring any serious injury, you're pretty reliably going to be able to get out the same way you went in. Your feet are going to keep working. You're going to be able to hike out. With the motorcycle, you have the potential for something to break down. It's a mechanical thing, and mechanical things break. I carry a pretty extensive set of tools, and I can fix just about anything on the side of the road, but not everything. There are certain components on this bike that I can't carry a spare for that could fail, and that will leave me stranded. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how I address being stranded. What happens if I get up in the morning and I can't get the bike started and I can't fix it here? What do I do? You can pretty well count on discovering that you've got a problem after all packed up, camp's broken down, you're ready to go. You get on the bike, everything's packed up, you go to start the bike and nothing happens. Or maybe that's when you're checking it out. And this is something that I want to throw in here. I recommend, I do a walk around. Now, it may come from my commercial driving background, but before I fire up the bike, I check the oil, I walk around it, I look at the tires, I look at the belt, I look at the bike all the way around, make sure everything's in order before I take off in the morning, whether I'm camping or whether I'm at home. So when you do this walk around, I recommend that everybody does it. If you've got a bike, once you've packed it, do your walk around. Make sure your bungee cords are tight. Make sure everything is packed on there solid the way you want it. Make sure mechanically the bike looks good. Make sure the tires look good. Make sure they've got air in them. Make sure the belt looks good. Make sure that the bike is completely ready to go. You should do this at the beginning of every day, in my opinion. So that's when you're going to discover the problem. You've done your walk around, you see a flat tire with a big gash in it. Or you've done your walk around and you go to start the bike and it doesn't start. Now it's time for plan B. What do you do? Okay, so you've got this emergency situation. You need to solve it. Number one rule of an emergency situation, don't panic. Stop, think. There's a couple of schools of thought, but that philosophy drives the direction I go. So for me, to try and think, I'm going to have to hike out of here. I've got a 20-mile hike ahead of me. How am I going to do this? What am I going to bring with me? That's number one. What am I going to bring with me? What do I need to be successful in self-rescue? So I could think about what I have and put together a list in my head of what things I'm going to bring. That's one. The other school of thought is that you look at everything you have and select from those items with them out in front of you. I prefer that school of thought because if I'm trying to remember, did I bring my folding saw this time? What food did I bring? How much paracord do I have? Did I bring the 50-foot or did I? I'm going to get confused. I'm going to forget things. And especially in a stressful situation. If I'm stressed about self-rescue, I don't want to add to that stress by trying to remember what I have. So I put everything I have out in front of me. And from these items, I'm going to select what I'm going to need to carry with me to self-rescue, to make this 20-mile hike to town to go get parts or go get help. In bushcraft, there are what we call the 5 C's. These are the 5 items that you absolutely have to cover with a tool in order to survive. And those 5 C's consist of cover, combustion, container, cutting, and cordage. Now I've got all of those 5 C's laid out here within my kit, but I don't need multiples of some items, because remember, I'm going to make a 20-mile hike that I wasn't expecting to make. So I need to keep it light. I need to carry a bare minimum, but I need to carry enough that if I don't make it in a day, I can stop. Now the very first thing that I'm going to look at, because I'm going to do something that's very stressful here, and remember, I'm at the end of my trip, so I've eaten my food, and I drank my water. And in this particular site, I don't have a water source nearby. I had to bring in all my water. I could get to a water source by hiking a mile in the wrong direction, but I don't want to do that. I need to conserve my energy for this 20-mile hike. So the first thing I'm going to do is take inventory of how much water I have. So this container is about half full. This one's empty. The second thing is I want to know how much food I have left, because I always carry an emergency food pack with me. And that's a little different. That's not my usual food that I'm preparing my meals, but some beef jerky, my Fig Newtons, some trail mix, and then I've got some dehydrated milk. Let's see, I have some biscuit mix and some spices and the remains of some more Fig Newtons. So looking at this, if I'm out on the trail for 2 days, 3 days, I'm fine. I'm eating well. Now I'm going to look at, do I want to carry all this food? The answer is yes, I do, because I need to keep my energy up. Anything could happen. I want to be prepared. And as far as weight goes and what I'm going to need to carry, this really isn't going to add that much. This is going to be the bulk of the weight, but it's not going to add that much. So, my food I'm going to carry. Now let's get back to our 5 C's. So the first thing is cover. I have my tarp. I've got my ground cloth tarp. I have my wool blanket, and I have a second wool blanket I've recently added to my kit. I also have a rain poncho. So I've got quite a few options for cover. Now, I'm going to rule some of these out. That oilskin tarp, that's heavy. I don't want to carry that 20 miles. It's comfortable, it's great to sleep under, but I'm hoping I won't have to spend the night. And even if I do, I can do without that. My ground cloth, I've really struggled with this as I was putting together the idea for this video, whether I wanted to take it or not. I'm not going to. I don't need it. The reality is there are a number of ways that I can sleep with just a wool blanket and be completely comfortable. So that's what I'm going to do. I've got 2 wool blankets here. I've got one big one, one smaller one. The smaller one is lighter, and again, there's a pretty good chance that I'm not going to have to spend the night. So this is just a backup plan, but it's also to encapsulate everything I am bringing. So I'm going to opt for my smaller wool blanket and take that with me. So that's covered. Now, Combustion. Fire steel is on my knife, is always on my knife. So that's coming with me. I'm also going to bring some Vaseline infused cotton balls because it's been wet. I don't know what I'm going to encounter. If I've been hiking for 5 hours and I'm in the middle of nowhere and I'm tired and I'm cold, I'm not going to want to get creative in starting a fire. I want something I can just put the fire steel to, get a flame, and get that fire going and get warmed up and comfortable right away. So I'm going to bring this. I'm going to bring my fire steel. That's what I'm bringing for combustion. Now, for containers. This one's empty. I'm not going to carry two. This is staying here. So this one has a little bit of water. I'm going to bring this. Now, there's another aspect to this. In my kitchen bag, all of you have seen, I've got my bush pot, I've got various pans and things, and I could bring that because I am going to need to, if I run out of water, which I'm going to do, I'm going to need to boil it and make it so that I have something to drink. This is another place the paper map comes in handy because I know that roughly 8 miles down the road, there's a river. So I'll be able to get water 8 miles down the road in the direction I'm going. 8 miles is going to be 2 or 3 hours. I have a little over a liter of water. I'm good for 2 or 3 hours. This will work. So I'm going to bring this. I'm not going to bring that pot because this stainless steel container I can boil water in. So once I've drank all the water that's in here, gotten to the river, gotten more water, I'm going to take this container. I'm going to take a piece of my cordage. I'm going to take a stick, tie the stick to the cordage, put it down in the mouth, and then I can hang this up above the fire and I can boil my water. Or, depending on the situation with the fire, what I end up building, I may just set it directly in the fire without the cap on because the cap will melt. This is not an insulated bottle. It's just a straight stainless steel bottle and it'll handle direct fire just fine. So there's my container. I've got my cover. I've got my combustion. I've got my container. Now let's talk about cordage. Well, that's kind of a no-brainer. I've got some paracord. There's close to 100 feet here. I pulled some out for a project, but that's plenty of cordage. And finally, cutting. So, for cutting, I have a few options here. I have my Mora knife, which is awesome, and I love my Mora knife. I have my Silky folding saw. I have my axe. I have my shovel. Shovel is a cutting implement. So I don't need the shovel. If I need to dig, I'll make a digging stick, and I'll show you that in a later video if you haven't seen that before. So I don't need the shovel. The axe is heavy. I would carry just the axe, and this is another one of those conundrum situations because the knife or the axe, which one would be better? And most people would choose the knife. I find I can do virtually anything with the axe that I can do with the knife. The difference is weight. So again, I'm making a 20-mile hike. I want to keep it light. I'm going to select the knife between those two. The saw, be really nice to have, but it's extra weight, and I can do with small sticks that I can cut up with my knife, that I can baton with my knife, just fine. So I'm not bringing the saw. So my cutting is going to be my Mora knife. Now a few things that aren't in the 5Cs or are duplicates. For cover, I'm going to bring my rain poncho. I don't expect it to rain tonight, But this was the tipping decision between whether I should bring my ground cloth tarp or not. I can use this as a ground cloth. I can use it as a cover for my pack if it does rain. I can even use this as a shelter. So a rain poncho is going to get added to the kit. First aid kit. Don't leave home without it. Like I said, this is, I've said before in my videos, this is an inexpensive one, but it's got the things that I need the most. And again, it's about self-rescue. I don't need a complete trauma kit, because if I need a complete trauma kit, I'm not going to be in any condition to apply it. This will cover everything that I need to apply to myself to self-rescue, should I need it. And my headlight. And the fact is, I don't plan to hike at night, but if I'm a mile from town and it gets dark, I'm going to put on my headlight and keep on going. If I do have to spend the night out in the bush, I'm going to want a light so that I can see what I'm doing, start my fire, eat my dry foods there. So I'm definitely bringing this. This is a bag of wood shavings, because as I said, it's wet. I want to make it as easy on myself as possible. This weighs maybe 4 ounces. It's extremely light, easy to carry, and I know it's dry. I've been carrying it around with me. So this is going to make starting a fire easy. And this is all about easy, because this is a self-rescue in a panic situation. We need to keep it easy and as little stress as possible. So I'm going to bring this. Now you'll probably notice I've got some clothing here. So I'm not going to get into a whole thing about clothing and layers and what I wear. If you're an outdoors person, you probably know you want to wear wool where you can, you want to wear layers. Those are the two keys. I have wool base layer, I have a wool top layer over my core, and I have my riding jacket, but I also have a wool lined coat that I keep in the wintertime to camp with. And this is going to be ideal, because not only is it warm, but if it gets wet, it stays warm. What it is lacking is a waterproof shell, but again, I have that with my poncho. So I'm bringing that. I'm not bringing my leather riding jacket. The reason I'm not bringing the leather riding jacket is it's heavy. It's warm, but it's not as versatile. I don't have as much motion in it as I will in the bigger coat. So just in general, this is a better choice for hiking out of here. Socks. And I cannot stress enough, bring extra socks. Bring multiple pairs of extra socks. There are several reasons for this. Number one is when you sleep, you want to go to bed with dry feet and dry socks, or you will get cold. If I'm going to be camping after this hike, my feet are going to be sweaty from hiking however many miles I hike before I stop. I need to get warmed up. I need my feet dry. I need dry socks. You will be amazed at how much difference in your warmth and personal comforts you will see just going to bed with dry socks on. Sweater. It's a wool blend sweater. So, as I said, my base layer is wool. My next layer is wool. My top layer is wool. And I have the backup of a shell. If this gets wet, or if I sweat through, which undoubtedly I'm going to do through my base layer, into my second layer, my insulating layer, I'm going to want a dry insulating layer. The wool base layer is going to do a pretty good job of keeping me warm, but the sooner I can dry it out, or even if I have to take it off and dry it out over a campfire and then put it back on, having another insulating layer that's dry and warm is going to be critical in staying warm and comfortable. So there you have it. this is what I'm going to bring with me. I'm sure you're all looking at this and wondering, you've got all this stuff. How are you going to carry it? I mean, this is a pretty good amount of stuff. It's not a lot of weight, but it's a lot of bulk. I'm not going to just wrap it up in my arms. Now, because of the fact that I'm camping on a motorcycle, I'm not bringing a backpack with me. So that's not an option. I also don't have a duffel bag. I do have a dry bag, but I didn't bring that this trip, and it would not be my first choice. So let me show you how I'm going to make this all work and carry it. So what we have is a Roycroft Pack Frame. This will work to handle all of the gear that I'm going to pack out of here. And it's pretty stout. The main thing is it's going to keep the gear off of my back, away from my back. And that's going to make it more comfortable, distribute the load, make it easier for me to carry. So now that we have the frame made, I need to wrap everything up. So I'm going to take my wool blanket here. I'm going to fold everything into it. And this is kind of important. So what I didn't mention is I also have my towel and I have my journal and other items with me just in case I need them, in case I need to reference them. I've already looked at my journal. I know where I am. I've looked at my maps. I know where I'm going. So it's in there, though, in case I need to reference it again. I'm not going to roll my food and my water and my coat up. Everything else in here makes for a nice pack. My coat I may wear depending on when I get out of here. It's getting pretty late, so I already know I'm not going to make it to town in one trip. But it's cooling off. I might wear it. If I don't, I'm going to roll this up on the outside of my bedroll. And I have a couple of things in the pocket. I've got my wool beanie in the pocket here, and I do want to have that available. And I've got a compass. And that compass is going to go around my neck when I start walking out of here. So I now have a nice pack. My water I'm going to need, so I need to keep that outside and accessible. My food I'm also going to need, so I'm going to want to keep that outside and accessible. So now it's time to secure all this to the Roycroft frame. Now there's a couple of ways that I can do this. Normally, if you're out doing bushcraft and you have some reason to need a Roycroft frame, you would take your paracord, your cordage, you'd use it, and you'd lash everything to it. But the cool thing here is we're on a motorcycle and we got some bungee cords. So we're going to use bungee cords and a bungee net to make this really easy. So we're going to take our bungee cords, wrap them around here, secure that to it. That's a pretty secure pack. And I'm going to take my water, put my water up here where I can get to that pretty easy. Throw my hat in here. Now this isn't as neat and tidy as I like to do things, and probably not as neat and tidy as a lot of you like to do things, but it'll hold up. It'll get me down the hill. So now the final piece of this puzzle is I need to make some straps so I can put this on my back and take off. Okay, so we've got our straps set up here, and anytime you're going to put a pack on, I'm sure most of you already know this, you want to set it up, and the heavier it is, the more important it is, obviously. You can certainly pick a light pack off the ground, but if you start getting a heavier pack, you want to set it up higher, and the ideal position is to set it up so you can sit down in front of it and just climb into the straps. And that way, you're not having to lift the weight. Now, once the straps are over my shoulders and in, I can take them back here and find my cross piece. Go around the cross piece And most people will probably do this before they get into it. I just find it easier for me to do it that way. Then I also go around the overhang on the bottom. I do the same thing on this side. So I go to the cross piece, around the overhang on the bottom. And if I had a little bit more, it'd be good, but now I can adjust the straps to where I want them. And take a toggle, take up my slack with the toggle. Okay, so there you go. Pack's on, straps are set up, everything's set up. You'll notice I put my gloves in there to pad my shoulders, and that'll make it a little bit more comfortable. The weight on this, very minimal amount is actually on my shoulders. A lot of it's down on my hips, and that's exactly where I want it. So this is very comfortable to carry. Had I had a heavier pack, instead of the gloves, I could have used a couple of flat pieces of wood and put them in there between the fleshy part of my shoulder and my pecs here, and that would give me better distribution of pressure to make it more comfortable to carry a heavier pack. But for this pack, this is absolutely fine. Okay, so the final piece of this puzzle is I'm going to take a day and a half hike here, and I'm going to leave my equipment and my motorcycle here. Not something I look forward to, not something I would recommend unless it's an emergency situation, which this would be an emergency situation. Bike's broke down, it's me or the bike, guess what? The bike loses. So how do you secure the bike? What do you do? I'm going to give some suggestions that I do. This is not something that I'm saying is the only or even the best solution. This is just what I would do if I were in this situation. What I've discovered is that if you try to hide things, people find them. Invariably, they will find them. If I take my bike and I put it back in the woods and I put a tarp over it, there will be some party of hunters coming through here who will see the glint of chrome, and one of them will steal something. That's just what has been my experience in the past, is the harder you try to hide something, the more likely somebody is going to find it. So I believe in hiding things in plain sight. So before I would leave, I would set up my tarp, I would set up my campsite, I'd put all my gear away, it'll be in my bags and locked up, and everything will be clean and tidy, but it'll look like I'm still camping here. So if somebody comes by and they see my bike sitting there and they see my tarp set up, they're going to think either I'm there and I'm in the tarp, or maybe I've taken a short hike into the woods, but I'll be right back. And they're going to be less inclined to snoop around and feel that they have all the time in the world. If the bike's hidden, that is a big sign that says this is going to be here for a while. You have time. And that's the last thing you want to tell a thief. So that's my method, is I set up my camp, make it look lived in, and let it be. The other thing I struggle with is a note. And we should talk a little bit about basic survival, because this is a survival situation that I'm describing. So basic survival says you stay put and wait to be rescued. Now, if I didn't know where I was injured, there were any number of other reasons that I could not safely hike out and know that I could hike out and was within a reasonable distance of a telephone and of help, I wouldn't even consider it. I would stay put. Because when I leave, when I go on these trips, I make sure that somebody knows where I'm going, as close as possible. Granted, when you're stopping impromptu places, it's hard to give an exact location, but it gives a direction. And if somebody's lost, you'd be amazed at how capable the search and rescue teams are. That aside, that's the number one choice, is to stay put. Right after fixing the problem, improvising, and going your merry way. So after staying put would be hiking for help. Leaving a note is something that survival experts will often tell you is recommended. Now, I struggle with this because of my specific situation with the motorcycle. If I'm leaving a note, again, I'm telling the thieves, hey, I've wandered off, I'm headed for town, you got time. They may not know how much time, but it gives them the illusion of having time to take what they want to take, to load the truck up in to load the bike up in the back of a truck and take it away, whatever it is. None of these is going to be a guaranteed, foolproof, sure way to prevent your stuff from being stolen, damaged, or vandalized, or from getting yourself in trouble. And again, these are just my views. I don't leave a note, not on the bike. I carry enough information on me, I stay enough to major roads that if something does happen, I've got a pretty good chance of being found. I have as good a chance of being found alongside the road if I were to fall in the river when I'm getting water, for instance. I stand as much of a chance of being found there as I would if I stayed here without my family knowing the exact lat and long of where I'm camping, but just knowing my route and my schedule. So I feel pretty safe in not leaving a note, leaving information in my journal. And again, I do carry my journal with me. I keep it up to date. If I'm going to walk out of here, I'm going to make sure I've written in my journal, this is where I left the bike. These are the circumstances. This is how I left my campsite. I'll even take my phone and I'll take a picture of things just so I know if somebody messed with something, I can spot that when I come back in. That's just a thing with me. I like to keep visual records of things. So my journal tells where my bike is, where my camp is. If something happened to me on my way to town, somebody could find that journal, recreate the circumstances, and at least there would be answers as to how I got where I was and what happened. Survival stuff, to me, isn't as fun to talk about because it's not just enjoying the outdoors. So I'm kind of glad that I'm closing out this episode, but I think it's important information. And I hope some of you took away some informative tidbits or at least had a snicker or two at my expense. So thank you again for joining me. If you like the video, please give a thumbs up, hit the red subscribe button, hit the bell, so you get notifications and you know when my next video is up. Every once in a while I'll slip one in there that isn't on a Friday, like I did with my trailer video. So stay tuned, hit the subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll see you on the next video.